ever Blockly User Summit. So making history today. Yeah, so we're very happy. Very, very happy that you're here. So we want to make your next couple of days as comfortable and productive as possible. So if you need anything at all, if you need Tylenol, if you need a pencil, if you need a bouncy ball, I don't know. We have a lot of things here at Google that we could probably find it for you. So just if you have anything you need, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help solve any problem you may have. We're going to, or part of this little talk here that I'm going to give, we're going to talk about the team a little bit. You're going to get to know them well over the next few days, the kind of the goals of why we brought you all together, schedule of events, a couple of announcements, and then we're going to do some quick Q&A, but by all means, you'll have 2 days to ask the team all you want. So here's the team. You probably have met some of them already. So we have, how about you all just wave your hand? We have Eric and Andrew, Rachel, Neil. He's such a good host. He's outside. He's waiting for Neil. Yeah, and oh, speaking of, did somebody? I ended up with 2 cookies. So who lost their cookie? Did you? Yeah, I knew that I would find a home. Yeah, and myself. So these are the folks that if you have questions over the next few days, just reach out to us. So these are the things that we hope to accomplish with the goal with the summit. We really want to help you strengthen your technical foundation when it comes to Blockly. You're going to learn what's happening with Blockly. And we really hope that by doing that and working together, you'll be able to accelerate your productivity and maybe solve some of the hurdles or get over some of the hurdles you've had with Blockly. The great thing about bringing all of you together is that while one of you might be struggling with something, one of you might be struggling with something, you definitely you can find a solution here either from the Blockly team or from one another. We really want you to encourage collaboration. That's going to be a bit more obvious with tomorrow during the hackathon and the Unconference portions too. So we want you to be active participants in this summit. Also, we really would like you to continue learning, contributing, and as I mentioned, collaborating, sharing your knowledge with one another. And we really are here to support you, but we encourage you to be adventurous and kind of drive your own successes over the next 2 days. And remember, as you all know, the learning never stops. Okay, a little bit of the agenda today. Neil will kick us off with the history of Blockly. Eric's going to talk about where we're going. We'll have a short break. We're going to do some show and tell. And then Andrew will do mobile Blockly, show and tell Rachel, and mobile Blockly with Andrew. Then a little lunch. Come back. The Scratch team's going to be chatting with us. And then we'll hear from Microsoft MakeCode team. Then there's another break. Scratch extensions. Then we're going to do a panel. Joshua, who's here from the UK, 14 years old, is going to talk about EduBlock. So we're happy that he was able to attend. And then we'll have lightning talks and poster sessions. If you signed up, I will follow up and we'll kind of come up with an order for the lightning talks. If you didn't sign up and you want to do it, we're that easygoing. We want this to be a time when you can show off what you're doing with Blockly. And then we're going to have that, and all the demos and posters will kind of go on during the dinner and networking part of the day. So that's a full day for you all. So if you have any questions about any of this, we're going to try to this schedule, but we know that we also don't want to stop an active discussion about something. So we hope to be somewhat flexible as well there. So, okay, tomorrow, Unconference. So tomorrow, well, you come in tomorrow, we have we'll have things posted up in the along the wall tomorrow morning, you're going to add your name and a topic to an empty slot, or join a topic that sounds interesting to you. So kind of throughout the day today, if there's something that resonates with you, or something that comes up, consider that as a topic for tomorrow. And then we'll organize you by tables for that part. And then for the hackathon, same kind of thing, where there'll be sheets up for organizing teams, or sheets for the organizing teams will be put up tomorrow. You could put up your idea or a project on the top of a sheet, and then you can add your name to that as well. There was some setup for the hackathon. If you didn't get a chance to do it, you can, it's on the event site as well, with the instructions. All right, now, I don't have a drum roll, but this is a drum roll. So a couple of announcements. We're going to start here that one of the announcements is that we're deprecating native Android and iOS libraries. A couple of reasons for this. There was limited use by developers, a lot of support, or a lot of overhead to support these two things. And then also now the JavaScript library works well on mobile. So, and Andrew will talk a lot about that later in his talk. And you'll have time to express concerns or get your questions answered if this is impacts you. And then new logo. Everybody, what do you think about the new logo? Good? Good? That's kind of like, eh. What do you think of the new logo? Great, there's stickers, and if you need more stickers, we're happy to give you those. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the way to use the new logo and whatnot correctly. And you can also get full details here at this link here. But one thing, we'll be sharing all the slides. We are recording most of the talks, just so folks can, you can share that with your colleagues. You can also, come back to them later. Just be mindful that, there are, when we're not recording, and we'll give you a heads up on that if somebody's talking and they don't want their presentation recorded, that means that they don't want it probably shared all throughout the world. So we'll give you a heads up on that, because we want to share information and be transparent, but we also want to be mindful of respecting others' work as well. So with that, any just general questions about the next 2 days? You're ready to go? Your coffee, yeah, you're caffeinated? Okay, also water bottles, notebooks, pens, those are yours. We encourage you to fill up your water bottle in the back. We also have some other water bottles back there. Like I mentioned at the beginning, please let me know if you need anything. We're gonna have lunch and dinner, and but if there's something you need, just ask. All right. And with that, let's see, we're gonna do. Will be Neil here. Let me just put this up here. And let's see. Here and here. And here's all your, if you want to go here. Right. Is that all right? And with that, this is Neil, the father of Block.
Real quick before Neil goes, we updated the location last night, and I forgot to update it in the slides. There should be a /app-integration after guides. So if you're looking for it, easier just go to the developer site, look under app integration, and you'll find the logo branding guidelines there.
Our documentation is already out of date. My name is Neil Fraser. I am the person responsible for all the questionable design decisions in Blockly. Yeah, okay. Most of them. So Blockly started the way most projects start at Google. I was working on a exciting thing that got canceled. It was a neural network to do what we would now call machine learning. And then Google bought or acquired DeepMind. And suddenly my project looked like roadkill compared to what those guys could do. So that was the correct decision to cancel my project. And my manager asked me to have a look at a different project called App Inventor. There's Looney over there. Who? Do we have any other App Inventor people? So these are modern App Inventor, right? So you'll come later. App Inventor was and is a graphical programming language for creating Android applications. So you could snap blocks together and poof, there was an Android application that had access to the accelerometers and everything else. Great application. The problem with it was that it was built in haste and the blocks editor ran in Java, which is difficult to run in a web browser. Even back in 2011, Java was very, very dead in a web browser. So in order to run this thing, you needed to install Java Web Start. And I was really interested in the project when it first launched. I wasn't involved with it. And I tried to run it. And after an hour, I just gave up. So it was that difficult to run. That said, it was still very, very successful and very cool. So I was brought in to see if we could rewrite this front end from Java to JavaScript. Yeah, here's a screenshot of the original App Inventor attempting to render a multiplication block. So the fact that it was in Java was one problem. The fact that it had I'm actually not sure what it was trying to do here. I mean, sometimes. Anyway, that had to go. But if you're familiar with Blockly, you will recognize a lot of the design here. This looks more like Blockly than many other systems. And this is what Blockly came from. I ended up writing Blockly in two different ways, one with SVG and one with Canvas in the first month to figure out which one was the best one, because once you make that decision, there's no going back. And much to my relief, SVG won, because SVG is a whole lot easier to program than Canvas. And then after several months of working on this, it was going well. The inevitable thing happened. This is Google, so App Inventor was killed. Not because it was difficult to install. In fact, it was very successful, which is why it was killed. If you want more information, you can talk to Liz. I won't go into that. It was picked up by MIT. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Evan Patman, lead software.
So at the time, MIT was struggling just to get the system running because it had come straight out of Google's infrastructure. It had dependencies across Google, and so just trying to extract it and getting it to run was a huge issue. They were quite rightly not interested in some half-baked front end that didn't work yet and didn't have any of the features that they needed. So the front end, code word Blockly, stayed with me, and I kept working on it even after the project was canceled, which is a bit of a problem because, well, the project was gone, but I'm still working on it. It turns out that at Google, it takes a very, very long time to fire somebody. And I milked that for as long as I could. But eventually, time ran out, and I was actually assigned to another project. And so I did the only thing that was reasonable. I went on vacation. No, not that sort of vacation. The sort of vacation where you come into work every day and keep working. But my manager couldn't tell me what to work on because I was on vacation. After a couple of months of that, I had a lot of vacation accrued, and I was single, so I gave a demo, and Blockly was actually working. It impressed everybody, and my managers were decided to retroactively uncancel it. The retroactive was the really nice part because I got all my vacation back. So there's a reason I like working at Google. So the cancellation of App Inventor at the time was, I mean, it felt like the end of the world. It felt like the worst thing that could have happened to the project. But in retrospect, it was the best thing that could have happened to Blockly, because Blockly was no longer a front end for App Inventor. It was a generic graphical programming environment. It was not a programming language. If App Inventor had continued at Google, it would have had a fantastic front end, but not one that could be transplanted to anything else. And so out of the ashes of App Inventor, we actually got something that was, I think, a much better product. And then in the end, App Inventor, once Blockly was ready, started using it, as did a whole lot of others. And many of these have been modded to the point where I don't even recognize them when I see it. In fact, where's Made with Code? Oh yeah, this one. I saw it once, just stumbled across it, and started playing with it. And it was so different from Blockly that I did not know that it was Blockly until I connected two graphical areas together. I'll call them blocks. And it made that sound. And I recognize that sound because I built that sound from the ground up. It's a lipstick container popping with an echo and a reverb. And I immediately recognized that sound. And I thought, oh, did they steal a sound? And check the CSS. It was Blockly this, Blockly that. OK, nice job. So on the basis of this success of people using it all over the place, I put myself up for promotion. And it was promptly denied. Insufficient impact. 2 weeks later, this guy used Blockly and became the first US president to use Blockly, to program, first US president to program. And that got me the impact that I needed to be promoted. Thanks, Obama. So 3 years ago, we started talking with Scratch. Hey, who's here from Scratch? They're all clustered together. So Scratch has been tremendously successful in parallel with Blockly. They had an issue, though. Scratch 2 was written in Flash, which at the time of writing was the correct thing to do, because SVG was not a viable technology at the time. Neither was Canvas. And Flash was the best game in town. It really was the right decision. However, about a year before they launched, the writing was on the wall that Flash was in trouble. And so we started talking with them, and Blockly is now the blocks editor reskinned for Scratch 3, which is releasing of 19. Well, then because then I'll be on record. January 2019, according to Champika. It's moved around a little bit. And Scratch is not only the biggest user of Blockly in terms of end users, but we've been spending a lot of time not just supporting them, but actively writing code with them. So Caitlin over here just defected. She was working on the Blockly team and got enticed to move over, following in the footsteps of Chapika, who also moved over. So we have a very, very tight collaboration with Scratch, and we do a lot of work with them, and it's been fantastic to work with them. Now, most of I go back a couple. Most of these applications that use Blockly are educational in nature. These are the ones that we hear about a lot. Do we have anybody here who's using Scratch for non-educational purposes? Hey, right, we've got, yeah. Who are you working with?
Who are you?
So,
Adaptivist.
do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Blockly?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's, we're building automation tools.
Sorry, I'm going to have you repeat time in our handy dandy microphone. So it's when we're recording and the folks actually hear. You can sing.
Hello. We're doing workflow automation for development platforms and business collaboration platforms using Blockly.
Excellent. And we have some representatives over here from, did you bring any giant orange robots?
There's an on switch. Okay,
Yeah.
great. We are from Kuka Robotics, and we're not actually using it yet. Everything we're talking about here is vaporware anyway. But we are considering using Blockly as an ease of use layer for operators and non-expert robotics programmers to program motion sequences for our robots.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing that. Are there any other non-educational users?
Up is on. Oh, it's on. Sweet. Mark and I are with a company called Elastic Path. We have a commerce platform that sells into large enterprise, and we are building a commerce designer tool for the people who make the decisions about what the commerce offerings are going to be, can hopefully put the rules in themselves. And just telling these gentlemen, buy the kind of rules we have to deal with are like buy 3 socks, get a 4th pair free. And then the customer says, well, unless they're purple. So how do you put the purple part into your Java software? It's pretty tough. But with Blockly, you can bring in the purple attribute and turn off those kinds of things. So we're pretty excited to see how this has gone for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other? Yeah, you've.
Hello, I'm Antonio Forgione. I work for Lycor Biosciences, and in our company, we are using Blockly for making the interface to a data logger system, basically. We have hundreds of sensors attached to this data acquisition system, and each sensor is basically a channel, ADC converters and similar electronic devices. And basically, to configure these 200 plus channels, we're using Blockly. So it's extremely easy and works extremely well. And we didn't release yet the product, hopefully in the next couple of months. But we are very, very excited to see the reaction of users, because our customer base is mostly scientists, PhD students in the environmental sciences, and they don't have necessarily a background in programming. And most of these data acquisition systems are based on some visual kind of programming, sometimes Visual Basic like.
Awesome. Thank you. So we hear a lot about the educational uses. In general, we don't get to hear about the non-educational ones because it's usually more private and used inside a company. So we're especially interested in feedback from non-educational users because we just don't see that sort of feedback. Normally when we find out about a non-educational user, it's through a roundabout way. There was somebody on the news group a couple of years ago who said, when I generate more than 3,000 lines of COBOL, Blockly really starts to slow down. Wait. I'm hoping that was not an educational use case. Yeah, to me, COBOL means bank. We never found out what this person was using it for, but it's probably a new front end for somebody, for some ancient banking system. That's actually me in university library in Ho Chi Minh City, and I pulled that one off the shelf. Computer programming in COBOL. It's just, Another time that we found somebody else using it non-educationally was I got an email from somebody saying that they were using it for security, but weren't really forthcoming as to what they were doing with it, which kind of makes sense if you're doing something with security. But they asked if they could meet, and I said, yeah, sure, come on in. I mean, if you're using Blockly, you're welcome to lunch here anytime. That goes for everybody. Anyway, he came in, we had lunch, and he was kind of evasive about what he was doing. And then at the end, he finally told me he was working for these guys. He stressed the good side, but that didn't really clarify things for me. What he was really looking for was somebody to help with development of Blockly, and was wondering if I was interested. Hell no. It also somewhat diminished my respect for their competency, given that they didn't realize that I'm not American. I'm Canadian. So. When I started writing Blockly, I got, well, the first line was easy, use strict. Second line posed a problem, create the namespace. I had to create a name for it. So trying to figure out what to call it. The convention at Google for experimental projects is just to put an X after it. So I was thinking, okay, blocks. And did a quick Google search, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of projects called blocks. Even more worryingly, there were 2 projects within Google called blocks. So no. I looked at the other common naming convention, which is to take a noun, add ly to the end to make an adjective in the form of rightly or bitly or feedly and all those other ones. So I did a quick Google search for Blockly, and there was one result. It's a location. I'm not going to say a town or a village. It looks like one farmhouse and a barn in Iowa. They're rather tricky to find these days in Google. About a month after Blockly was released, a small company in Britain launched called Blockly, and they probably did the background check, but didn't find anything big. I mean, Blockly was tiny when it released. Unfortunately for them, they are very difficult to find in Google when you search for them, which meant that they take out ads to get to the top. So that was the moment when Blockly became a positive revenue stream for Google. Since we did have the word Blockly, there's been some suggestions that we get the domain block.ly. I thought that was a bad idea because ly is Libya, right? And Bitly found that out the hard way because after Gaddafi got hauled out and shot, the ly domains all vanished for a while, and so that's why it's bitly.com now, because they just don't want to have their entire business hosted in Libya. So Blockly's been going along for, well, since 2011, 7 years now, more than 7 years. It's been a very stable project, and that's been one of the problems and the good things about Blockly. The first XML ever generated by Blockly can still be read by today's Blockly. We make very sure that stuff is backwards compatible for the most part. Early blocks from 2011 will still load today, unless you're doing something fancy like mutators and things like that. So we are not 100% compatible backwards, but we try really, really hard not to break stuff because we have a lot of users. We don't want to end up versioning. It's just, it does make life a lot more difficult for us though, because we have an idea, oh, it would be so much better if we did it this way. Like what bird brain chose XML? It should be JSON. Well, sorry, that would be me. Anyway, that's something that we do try very hard with. That said, there have been a few regressions. As Tina just mentioned, we are deprecating the Android and iOS versions. That will reduce our code base and our work load by a factor of 3. And they're just not as necessary anymore because mobile devices keep getting smoother and better, and they can now run web views and run boxed versions of WebBlockly almost as well as the native versions. And the overhead, both for us, but also for developers, for keeping 3 different versions it just became unmanageable for both of us. So one other thing that we're deprecating isn't too strong a word because it was never formally launched, but we've been working a lot on a version of Blockly for blind users. We spent quite a lot of time on this, and it's on the demos page. You can find it somewhere, unless it's been unlinked by now. I'm not sure. It was developed in conjunction with blind engineers, both here and at MIT. And technically, it worked great. And the fundamental idea is that it leverages blind users' ability to use screen readers and being able to navigate web pages, and uses that same information to navigate through a tree-based program. However, we then tested it with actual students, blind students, and we found that our target audience didn't actually know how to effectively use their screen readers, and they actually couldn't surf the web pages, which is a deeper problem. So basically, the fundamental of how we were trying to solve the problem was unsound. So there's that code that's in our repo that seems to be dead-ending. So that's another one that we're going to be walking back from and pursuing in a different direction. More on Eric's going to be talking more about that tomorrow, I believe, or tomorrow. So the first is Blockly is also open source, and that means all of our development, we don't just push releases, but our individual commits are open source. For a long time, it was just me, but then we got our first committer. It was an engineer from Facebook. She wrote the math blocks and the Python generator, and I think the a Dart generator, or at least half of it, a bunch of other things. And she also did something that we'd never seen before, which is she submitted unit tests. And I mean, her code was good, and she produced unit tests. There really wasn't much choice in the matter. We ended up getting married. So write those unit tests. And we now have a daughter. So this is the first person who owes her life to Blockly. 3 years ago, our team grew, and we now have a bunch of extra people whom you'll meet right after this. We've got, well, Eric is the project manager, eng manager. Rachel and Andrew. We used to have Caitlin. Traitor. About, yeah. A couple of years ago, I stepped back from the project. I'm no longer officially on the project. I am now the team mascot or something. So I'm currently working on something called Code City. It hasn't released yet, but it is designed to take people who have outgrown Blockly and are now looking for 2 years of hard training in order to get to a point where they can be serious industrial programmers. No idea whether this is going to succeed or not, but that's what I'm working on. Hope to release this next year. It's a race between Scratch and Code City to see who launches first. The current team, just introduced, Eric, Rachel, and Andrew. +1 down there, it represents the departure of Caitlin. So we have one free headcount. If anybody is interested, bring your resumes to Eric. And with that, I should ask for any questions.
Is Code City using Blockly?
It could, and I'm tempted to, but no. Is Code City using Blockly? I've decided not to, although it could be easily integrated. The purpose of Code City is to take people who have used Blockly and are done Blockly in one of its forms and want to move on. So for now, we're not planning on integrating Blockly into the editor. It would be very easy to do, though.
In general, is that another open source project?
Oh, yes, it's completely open source. It just hasn't been announced, and nobody knows where it is, but the code is out there because we're too cheap to get a private repo. We've got one person who's watching it. No idea who that is. All right.